When I decided to host the annual family dinner again, I thought it would be simple. After all, I'd been doing it for years, ever since the kids moved out and started their own lives. It was supposed to be a tradition that kept us connected, a chance to sit at the same table and remember that no matter how busy life became, we were still family. I wanted it to feel like the old days when Helen, my late wife, would hum in the kitchen, the smell of roast turkey filling the house, and the kids would run around laughing, arguing over who got the biggest slice of pie. Those were the nights that felt like home, warm and loud and chaotic in the best possible way. This year, I worked harder than ever to make it perfect. I scrubbed the house from top to bottom, polished the dining table, and even used the fancy china Helen loved. I cooked everything myself: roast beef, garlic mashed potatoes, glazed carrots, and Helen's famous apple pie recipe that I'd learned to bake after she passed, just to keep a piece of her alive in these gatherings. When I was done, the kitchen looked like a war zone, but I didn't care. All I could think about was how nice it would be to have everyone together again. Jack, my oldest son, Lisa, my only daughter, and Tom, the youngest, who still hadn't quite figured out what to do with his life, but had the biggest heart of them all. I sent out invitations a week early, handwritten like Helen used to do, hoping it would feel personal. Lisa replied with a thumbs-up emoji. Jack called briefly to say he'd be there, if work allowed. Tom texted me back almost instantly. "Wouldn't miss it, Dad." That one message made me smile. At least one of them still understood what this dinner meant. By the time the evening arrived, I was exhausted but excited. I put on a clean shirt, set the table, and lit candles to make it feel warm and welcoming. I even placed a small photo of Helen at the end of the table, like she was still part of it all. Jack arrived first, wearing his usual suit like he'd come straight from work, phone in hand, eyes already glued to a string of emails. "Hey, Dad," he said without looking up, leaning in for a quick distracted hug before walking past me into the dining room. "Place looks good." "Thanks, son," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Glad you made it." Lisa came next, heels clicking on the hardwood, her face framed by perfectly styled hair. She hugged me but pulled away quickly, sniffing the air. "Smells good, Dad. You went all out." "Wanted it to be special," I said. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She was already glancing around like she was measuring the house, taking mental notes. It struck me as odd, but I brushed it aside. Tom arrived last, grinning like a kid, holding a six-pack of the cheap beer he always brought. "Dad, smells amazing. You made the pie?" "Of course," I said, hugging him tightly. We all sat down, and for a moment, it almost felt right again. But almost isn't the same as actually being right. Jack was scrolling through his phone even as I tried to start a conversation. Lisa was texting someone under the table, smiling at whatever message she got. Tom, at least, was present, asking about the food, and joking about how he'd probably eat half the pie himself. I cleared my throat. "So, how's everyone been?" "Jack, how's work?" Jack didn't look up. "Busy. We're restructuring the firm. Could be big changes." Lisa rolled her eyes. "You're always busy, Jack. You need to take a break once in a while." Jack finally looked up. "And do what? Sit around like you? You still jumping from job to job?" Lisa's face hardened. "At least I'm not chained to a desk." I raised my hands. Hey, we're not doing this tonight. Let's just enjoy dinner, all right?" For a moment, they stopped, but the tension hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. We ate mostly in silence, except for Tom, who tried to keep the conversation alive. "Dad, this roast is perfect. Seriously, you're getting good at this." "Thanks, son," I said quietly, grateful for at least one bit of warmth at the table. After dinner, I brought out the apple pie, placing it in the center of the table. "Helen's recipe," I said softly. "She'd be proud to see us all here tonight." That's when it happened. Jack leaned back in his chair, set his phone down, and said, "Dad, we need to talk about this house." I froze. "What about the house?" Lisa exchanged a look with Jack, then said, "It's too much for you to handle alone. You should sell it, move somewhere smaller. It makes sense." Tom frowned. "What? This is his home." Jack shrugged. "Homes are just properties when they're too big for the people living in them. You could get a good price, Dad. With the market right now, it's the smart move." Lisa nodded. "And honestly, we've been talking. Maybe we could use some of the equity to help us out. You know, invest in something real. You don't need all this space." I stared at them, shocked. "This is where you grew up, where your mother and I built our lives. It's not just a house, it's home." Jack sighed like I was being unreasonable. "It's just a suggestion. You don't have to get emotional about it." But I was emotional. How could I not be? They were sitting at my table, eating food I'd spent all day cooking, surrounded by memories of their childhood, and all they could talk about was turning my life into liquidity for their plans. I looked at Lisa, at Jack, trying to find some hint of remorse, but saw none. Tom set his fork down. You guys are unbelievable. This isn't about Dad. This is about you wanting cash. Lisa glared at him. Don't start, Tom. You wouldn't understand responsibility if it hit you in the face. He shot back. At least I'm not trying to evict our father from his own home. I slammed my hand on the table. Enough. This dinner was supposed to bring us together, not tear us apart. My voice shook, but I couldn't stop. Do you even hear yourselves? Your mother would be heartbroken. For a moment, no one spoke. Jack picked up his phone again, muttering, This was a mistake. And Lisa stood, grabbing her purse. We're just trying to help, she said coldly before walking out. Jack followed, leaving Tom and me sitting in silence. Tom looked at me, eyes sad. I'm sorry, Dad. I don't know what's wrong with them. I shook my head, feeling years older in that moment. I don't either, son. That night, after Tom left, I sat alone at the table, staring at the empty chairs and the untouched half of the pie. What was supposed to be a night of family and warmth had turned into something cold and hollow. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. I didn't sleep much after that dinner. I sat at the kitchen table long after the candles had burned out, staring at the photo of Helen that I had placed there earlier, thinking it would make the night feel warm. Instead, her eyes seemed to look right through me, asking a question I didn't want to answer. What happened to us? The next morning, I called Tom just to hear a familiar voice. You okay, Dad? He asked. Yeah, I lied. Just tired. Thanks for standing up for me last night. You don't have to thank me, he said. You didn't deserve that. They were out of line. But I still felt a pang of guilt. Were they really out of line? Or had I missed something all these years? Maybe I hadn't been as present as I thought. Maybe the distance between us had grown slowly, like cracks in a wall you don't notice until it's about to collapse. Over the next few days, I didn't hear from Jack or Lisa. No apology, no explanation, just silence. It wasn't the first time they had been distant, but this felt different, heavier. I tried calling Jack, he let it go to voicemail. Lisa responded to a text with a short, busy this week. A week later, Lisa finally came by. She walked in like a realtor, glancing at the walls, the furniture, the photo frames. Dad, I didn't mean to upset you, she said, though her voice carried no real remorse. We're just thinking long term. You're alone here, and this house is too big. You could be somewhere smaller, easier to maintain, safer, even. I forced a smile. I'm fine here. I've lived in this house most of my life. It's home, she sighed. Home is people, Dad, not walls. And with Mom gone, and us living our lives, I just think you'd be better off somewhere new. Her words cut deeper than she realized. Home is people, not walls. Did that mean I wasn't home for her anymore? That this place we built together meant nothing now? After she left, I wandered through the house, touching the walls, the door frames where we'd marked the kids' heights as they grew, the kitchen counter where Helen and I had laughed while cooking together. To me, this was more than walls. It was history, memory, identity. But to my children, it was an asset. Jack finally called a few days later, but it wasn't an apology. Dad, I've been thinking, he said bluntly. If you did sell the house, you could invest the money, live off the interest. We could even manage it for you. You wouldn't have to worry about bills or maintenance. I gripped the phone tighter. You mean you could manage it for me? He paused. Well, yeah. We'd make sure it's handled right. You've done enough, Dad. Let us take over. But it didn't sound like care. It sounded like control. Like I was a burden they needed to manage, not a father they loved. Jack, I'm not ready to sell. This is my home, and I plan on staying here. There was a long silence before he said, You're being stubborn. Maybe, I replied, but I've earned the right to be. After that call, I knew something fundamental had changed. They weren't just suggesting anymore. They were planning. And I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't about me at all. It was about what I had, what I could give, what they thought they deserved. Tom came over that weekend with takeout and 2 beers. You holding up? He asked as we ate on the porch. I don't know, I admitted. Feels like they don't see me anymore. Just what I can give them. Tom nodded slowly. Jack's always been about control. And Lisa, I don't know what's gotten into her lately. She talks like she's already written you off. I stared into my beer. Your mother would have known what to say. She'd probably tell them to get over themselves and love their dad, Tom said, smiling sadly. That made me laugh for the first time all week, but it didn't last. Later that night, alone again, I caught myself wondering if this was inevitable. Kids grow up, move on, and sometimes drift away. But this felt different. This wasn't just distance. This was calculation. 2 weeks after that, I found out exactly how far it had gone. A neighbor mentioned casually that Lisa had asked about property values on our street, even asking for recommendations on real estate agents. When I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. I was just exploring options, Dad. Someone has to think ahead. I wanted to yell, to tell her to leave my life alone, but I just stood there, too tired to fight. That night, I sat at the dinner table again, looking at Helen's photo, and said out loud, I don't know how to fix this. The truth was, I wasn't sure it could be fixed. I knew something had shifted the moment I heard Jack's car pull up in front of my house that Saturday morning. He never came without calling first, and he never came this early. I opened the door to see him stepping out, wearing a suit despite it being the weekend, with a folder tucked under his arm, and an expression that said this wasn't a social call. Lisa followed behind him, holding a tablet and a coffee, her eyes fixed on the screen as if the world inside it mattered more than the one around her. Tom had called earlier to say he might drop by later, but judging from the way Jack and Lisa moved, this wasn't a family visit, it was a meeting. Morning, Dad, Jack said briskly, brushing past me into the living room. Lisa gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, but didn't look up from her tablet. We need to talk, Jack continued, already laying papers out on the coffee table. I frowned. Talk about what? About the house, Lisa said, finally glancing up. We've been thinking about it more seriously, and we have a plan. I sank into my armchair, already feeling that knot in my stomach tighten. I told you, I'm not selling. Jack held up a hand like he was presenting to a boardroom. Hear us out before you say no. We talked to a realtor, she says the market's hot right now. If you sold today, you could walk away with enough cash to buy a smaller place outright and still have a huge nest egg. Lisa jumped in, and we found a great condo downtown. It's got security, no yard to maintain, close to shops and doctors. It's perfect for you, Dad. It's not perfect, I said firmly. It's not home. Jack exchanged a look with Lisa, then leaned forward. Dad, you're alone here. This house is too big. It's too much work. You could fall, hurt yourself, and no one would know until it's too late. We're just looking out for you. I clenched my fists. You're not looking out for me. You're looking at what this house is worth. Lisa sighed impatiently. Dad, that's not fair. We're trying to be practical. You don't need 4 bedrooms for one person. It's inefficient. I looked at them both, searching for some flicker of sincerity, some sign that this was about love, not money. But all I saw was calculation, Jack's eyes scanning me like he was analyzing an investment, Lisa already pulling up listings on her tablet. Something inside me cracked. Enough, I said sharply. I'm not selling. This is my home. Your mother and I built our life here. Every wall, every scratch on this floor, every memory, it's ours. Not yours to liquidate. Jack's jaw tightened. Dad, you're being unreasonable. This house is sitting here like an unused asset while you... Stop calling my home an asset, I snapped, standing now. This isn't some stock portfolio. This is where you grew up, where your mother took her last breath. You think I'm going to just give that up because you want a bigger bank account? Lisa looked at me coldly. You're being emotional. This is about the future, Dad. You can't cling to the past forever. The past is all I have left of her, I shouted, my voice shaking. And you want to strip it for parts. For a moment, no one spoke. Jack glanced down at the folder, then back at me. We're trying to help, whether you see it or not. You're alone, Dad. That's not healthy. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. You want to help? Visit more. Call me without asking for something. Sit down and have dinner with me without turning it into a business pitch. That's how you help. Lisa closed her tablet with a loud snap. You're impossible. We're just trying to be responsible. No, you're trying to take control, I said quietly. You've been talking to neighbors about property values, calling real estate agents behind my back, making plans like I'm already gone. Do you have any idea how that feels? Jack stood, buttoning his suit jacket. You're making this harder than it needs to be. I'm making it harder? I laughed bitterly. I invite you to dinner to feel close again, and you use it to start plotting my future without me. You don't see me as a father. You see me as a bank with legs. Jack's face reddened. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you called just to say hello? When's the last time you asked how I'm doing instead of what I own? Lisa shifted uncomfortably. Dad, we love you. We're just... No, Lisa, I interrupted. You love what I can give you. There's a difference. They stared at me, silent, as the weight of my words sank in. Finally, Jack grabbed the folder off the table and turned to the door. Fine. Do what you want. Don't say we didn't try to help. Lisa hesitated, eyes softening for a moment. Dad? I shook my head. Go, both of you. They left without another word, the door closing, with a finality that echoed through the house. I stood there for a long time, my hands trembling, my chest tight. For years, I'd worried about losing my family to distance, to the busyness of life. I never imagined losing them to greed. Later that evening, Tom arrived, holding a bag of groceries. You okay? He asked, looking at me like he already knew the answer. No, I admitted, sinking into the couch. They want me to sell the house. Tom frowned. What? Why? Because they think it's too big for me. Because they see dollar signs where I see memories. He sat beside me, shaking his head. That's messed up, Dad. This is your home. They don't get to decide that for you. I don't know if I can forgive them for this, I said quietly. Tom put a hand on my shoulder. You don't have to decide that now. Just don't let them push you into something you'll regret. That night, I walked through the house, touching every wall, every photo, every memory. I stopped in the kitchen, staring at the mark on the doorframe where we'd measured the kids' heights every year. Jack's line stopped at 16, Lisa's at 15, Tom's at 18. Those marks told the story of a family that once loved each other enough to stand still, to measure life in inches instead of dollars. And I made a decision. I wasn't selling. Not now, not to them, not to anyone. If I had to fight for this home, for my life as I knew it, I would. Because this wasn't just about wood and nails. It was about love, loyalty, and the pieces of Helen I still carried in these walls, and I wasn't ready to let any of it go, not yet. I didn't answer Jack's calls for 3 days after he and Lisa stormed out of my house. I saw his name flash on my phone a few times, then Lisa's, but I let them ring out. I didn't know what I would say if I picked up, whether I'd yell, cry, or just sit there in silence like a fool. I needed time to think, to cool down, but mostly to figure out how the hell we had gotten here. When Tom dropped by on the 4th day, carrying a couple of coffees, I could tell he was worried. You look like you haven't slept, he said, setting one cup on the table. I haven't, not really, I admitted. It's like every time I close my eyes, I hear Jack talking about this house like it's a stock certificate. Like it's not the place where he grew up, but just numbers on a page. Tom sat down across from me. He's always been focused on money. Lisa too lately. I don't know what changed, but Dad, they're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. That stung. I wanted to defend them, but I couldn't. He was right. They weren't thinking about me. They were thinking about equity, returns, liquidity, words I never imagined I'd associate with my own children. That evening, Jack finally showed up at my door in person. He didn't look angry, just tired, like someone who had been rehearsing a speech all day. Dad, can we talk? I almost told him to leave, but instead I stepped aside. All right, come in. He sat down on the couch while I stayed standing, arms crossed. Look, maybe we came on too strong, he said. Lisa and I. We just want what's best for you. This house is a lot, and you're not getting any younger. You think I don't know how old I am? I asked sharply. I'm aware of every ache in my bones, Jack. But that doesn't give you the right to decide my life for me. Jack held up his hands. We're not deciding for you. We're trying to help you make a good choice. No, I said, voice firm. You're trying to make the choice that works best for you. You're worried about this house and what happens to it, not about me. He frowned. That's not fair. You think we don't care about you? I looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for the boy who used to follow me around the yard with a toy hammer, pretending to help Dad build things. I think you care about what I can give you. There's a difference. Jack's eyes narrowed. That's not true. Then why did you go to a realtor behind my back? Why did Lisa ask about property values in the neighborhood like I'm already gone? He didn't answer, just looked down at his hands. That silence was louder than any shouting could have been. Jack, I said softer now. When your mother and I built this house, we didn't build it for resale value. We built it for you, for Lisa, for Tom. Every brick, every nail, every mark on that doorframe, it's our life. And you want me to cash it in like it's a winning lottery ticket. Jack finally looked up. I just don't want to see you here alone, struggling to keep up. Then come visit more, I snapped. Call me once in a while. Sit down with me for dinner without talking about equity. That's how you keep me from being alone, Jack. Not by selling the last thing your mother left me. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to say something, maybe even apologize, but then his face hardened. You're being stubborn. Maybe I am, I admitted, but I've earned that right, and I'm telling you now. I'm not selling. Not this year, not next year, not until I'm ready. This is my home, and I'm staying in it. Jack stood slowly, grabbing his coat. Fine, but don't expect us to bail you out if things get tough. I laughed bitterly. Bail me out? I've been fine on my own since before you were born. He didn't respond, just walked out, closing the door with that same final, sharp sound I'd heard too often lately. When he left, I sat in the quiet for a long time, hands trembling. I wasn't shaking from fear, though I was shaking from resolve. That was the moment I knew things had to change. I couldn't keep letting Jack and Lisa treat me like a client, or, worse, a bank account. If they couldn't see me as a father, then I had to stop acting like one who could be manipulated. The next day, I called a lawyer, the same one who had helped me set up my will after Helen died. We met in his office, and I laid it all out. The pressure, the behind-the-back conversations, the disrespect. I want to update everything, I told him. The house stays with me as long as I'm alive. No one can force a sale. And if they think they can get their hands on it after I'm gone without earning it, they're wrong. I want it in writing. He nodded, scribbling notes. We can make sure it's ironclad. Do you want to make changes to your inheritance structure as well? I hesitated. Yes. I don't want to cut them off completely. They're still my kids, but I'm not handing them an open check anymore. If they want something, they'll have to earn it. I want most of it to go into a trust for the grandkids and for community programs. The lawyer smiled slightly. A lot of people do that these days. It helps ensure your legacy goes where you want it to. Legacy. That word stuck in my mind as I signed papers later that week. For years, I'd thought my legacy was just my family, that leaving them assets and stability was enough. But I realize now that legacy isn't just what you leave, it's what you stand for while you're still here. When I got home, I called Tom and told him everything. He didn't say much at first, then finally said, I'm proud of you, Dad. It's about time you stood up for yourself. That night, I sat at the kitchen table again, Helen's photo in front of me. I don't know if I did this right, honey, I whispered, but I know I had to do something. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. I decided to call another family dinner 2 weeks later, and this time, it wasn't about nostalgia or trying to patch things up with smiles and pie. This was about being clear, about setting a boundary I should have set long ago. I spent the whole day preparing not just food, but my resolve. I polished the table, laid out the same china Helen loved, and even baked her apple pie again, though my hands trembled slightly when I rolled the dough. This wasn't going to be a warm night, not like the dinners we used to have, but it needed to happen. When they arrived, I could tell they sensed something was different. Jack walked in with his usual businesslike energy, briefcase in hand, even though it was a Sunday evening. Lisa followed, looking polished and distant, her eyes sweeping over the table like she was assessing a property listing. Tom came last, giving me a small nod as if to say, I'm here for you, Dad. Smells good, Lisa said automatically, sliding into her chair. Thanks, I replied, setting down the roast beef. Let's eat first, talk later. We went through dinner mostly in silence, except for Tom's occasional attempts at small talk that fell flat. Jack and Lisa answered in short sentences, their minds clearly elsewhere. I waited until dessert to speak. I placed the pie on the table and sat down heavily, hands clasped together. I invited you all tonight because I need to be honest about something, I began. These dinners, they were supposed to be about family, about remembering where we came from and who we are to each other. But the last time we sat here, all I heard was talk about selling this house, about making changes I didn't want. That hurt more than I can explain. Jack shifted in his seat. Dad? Let me finish, I said sharply, surprising even myself. This house is my home. It's where your mother and I built our life, where I raised you, where every memory that still matters to me lives. I am not selling it. Not now, not ever. Not because anyone pressures me to. I've already taken legal steps to make sure of that. Lisa blinked. Legal steps? What do you mean? I updated everything, I said, my voice steady. My will, the deeds, all of it. The house stays mine until I'm gone. And after that, it won't be up for grabs unless you all can actually agree not for money, but for family reasons. And, as for inheritance, I've redirected most of it. There's still something for each of you, but the majority is going into a trust for the grandkids and community programs. If you want wealth, you'll have to earn it yourselves. Jack stared at me, his face flushing red. You're punishing us. No, I said, leaning forward. I'm teaching you something I should have taught a long time ago. Values matter more than property. I've spent my whole life working hard, thinking I was doing it for my family, but somewhere along the way, we lost sight of what family means. It's not about cashing in memories, it's about respecting them. Lisa folded her arms. So this is it. You're cutting us out? I'm not cutting you out, I said. You're still my children, and I love you. But I won't enable behavior that treats me like a walking bank account. You want to be part of my life, then be part of it, because you want me, not what I have. Jack pushed his chair back. This is unbelievable. After everything we've done, everything you've done? I said, my voice sharper now. Jack, you haven't visited except when it's convenient. Lisa, you came here the other night and walked through my home like you were appraising it. Do you even hear yourselves? For a moment, no one spoke. Tom finally broke the silence. Dad's right. You two don't see it, but you've been treating him like he's already gone. Lisa glared at him. Stay out of this, Tom. No, Tom said firmly. I'm tired of staying out of it. You think just because I don't have a corner office or a big paycheck, my opinion doesn't matter? Well, I'm the one who actually shows up, who actually cares about Dad, not his equity. Maybe that's worth more than whatever you're chasing. Jack stood abruptly, grabbing his briefcase. We don't need to sit here and be insulted. You're not being insulted, I said, standing too. You're being told the truth, and maybe you need to hear it. Lisa rose slowly, shaking her head. Fine. If that's how you want it, Dad. Just remember who's really here for you when you need help. I already know who's here for me, I said, looking at Tom. They left without another word, the door slamming behind them like a period at the end of a bitter sentence. I sank back into my chair, exhausted but strangely relieved. The line had been drawn. Tom stayed behind, helping me clear the table. You okay? He asked quietly. I will be, I said. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm standing on my own 2 feet. That night, after Tom left, I sat alone at the table again, looking at Helen's photo and whispering, I hope I did the right thing, honey. I hope this wakes them up. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of peace, like maybe I had finally reclaimed something I'd lost. Not the family I once had, but the dignity I thought had slipped away. It had been 6 months since that dinner where I finally drew the line. 6 months since I told my children I wouldn't sell the house and wouldn't be bullied into decisions that didn't feel right for me. I hadn't heard much from Jack or Lisa in that time. A few short texts. Happy birthday, Dad. Merry Christmas, but nothing resembling an apology or even an attempt to talk things through. For a while, I told myself it didn't bother me, that I was used to their distance. But the truth was, it hurt. I missed the version of them who used to run through these halls, who used to call this place home. Tom, on the other hand, had stepped up in ways I hadn't expected. He came by every weekend, sometimes just to watch a game on television, or help me with small repairs around the house. He never brought up Jack or Lisa unless I did. And even then, he'd say, they'll come around eventually, Dad. Just give them time. I wasn't sure he believed it, but I appreciated him saying it. I spent more time at the community center after updating my will and putting money into programs Helen used to care about. Helping other people's children, seeing them smile when they got their first book bag or a new pair of shoes for school, it reminded me of what mattered. It reminded me of why I'd worked so hard in the first place. This house had always been about family, and if my own family couldn't see that right now, at least someone was benefiting from the values Helen and I built together. One chilly afternoon in early spring, I was out in the yard trimming hedges when a car pulled up. I looked up and saw Lisa stepping out, dressed casually for once, her eyes scanning the yard like she hadn't been here in years. She walked up slowly, almost shyly. Hi, Dad, she said. I set down the clippers, wiping my hands on my jeans. Hi, Lisa. Didn't expect to see you. She nodded, glancing at the house. It looks nice. You've kept it up. I told you I could manage, I said, not unkindly. She winced slightly, then looked down at her shoes. I came to say I'm sorry. About before. About how we acted. I think I got so wrapped up in trying to plan everything that I forgot what this house means to you. To all of us. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched her, looking for signs that this was another performance. But her eyes were wet, her voice small in a way I hadn't heard since she was a kid. Lisa, I said finally, you hurt me, you and Jack both. I felt like I was just a means to an end. I know, she said, wiping a tear. I was wrong. I can't speak for Jack, but I'm here because I don't want things to stay broken between us. I miss you, Dad. For the first time in months, something loosened in my chest. I stepped forward and hugged her, awkward at first, then tighter when she didn't pull away. I miss you too, sweetheart, I said quietly. We sat on the porch for a long time, talking about small things, her job, her friends, even some old memories about Helen. There was no big breakthrough, no grand gesture, just conversation. It was more than I dared to hope for. When she left, she promised to visit again soon, and this time I believed her. Jack took longer. It wasn't until another 2 months passed that he showed up, unannounced like he used to do when he was younger, back when he just wanted to borrow tools or get advice. He looked tired, older somehow. Dad, he said, standing at the doorway. Can I come in? Of course, I said, stepping aside. He walked into the kitchen and sat down like he'd been carrying a weight too heavy for too long. Lisa told me she came by, said you two talked. We did, I said. It was good to see her. He nodded, then took a deep breath. I owe you an apology too. I was wrong. I thought I was doing the responsible thing, but I see now I was being selfish. I saw your house as an asset, not as home, and I shouldn't have treated you like some problem to solve. I studied him for a moment, then sat down across from him. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. We didn't hug right away. That wasn't Jack's style. But as he stood to leave, he hesitated and put a hand on my shoulder. For what it's worth, I'm glad you're staying. This place, it's where we became who we are. I don't want to forget that anymore. After he left, I sat at the kitchen table staring at Helen's photo, whispering, They're coming back, honey. Slowly, but they're coming back. For the first time in a long while, I felt hope, not the desperate kind you cling to when you're afraid of losing everything, but the quiet kind that tells you things can heal if you give them enough time. Life didn't suddenly turn into the warm family picture I'd once imagined. Jack and Lisa didn't become perfect children, and I didn't stop missing Helen every time I walked through the living room. But something had changed. I wasn't carrying that heavy bitterness anymore. I had drawn my line, stood by it, and somehow it had opened a door instead of closing one. That night, I sat out on the porch with a slice of apple pie and a glass of iced tea, watching the sun set over the yard I'd fought so hard to keep. The house behind me glowed in the golden light, sturdy and familiar, like an old friend that had weathered every storm with me. I realized then that I didn't just keep this house for me. I kept it for the memory of who we were and the hope of who we could still be. I raised my glass toward the fading sky and said softly, We're going to be okay, Helen. And for the first time since she'd been gone, I actually believed it.